Welcome, everybody. Today is August, no, not August. It's not August yet. No, April. I knew it began with an A. April 25th, 2024, meeting of this Town of Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023, signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law 30A, Section 20, until March 31, 25. This meeting of the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided in the order. Just a reminder that persons who would like to listen to the meeting while in progress may do so by calling the following phone number: 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 577-549-78#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. In accordance with town policy, the public can speak to any issue or hearing or business item on the agenda during the meeting when recognized by the chair. Before we go any further, we're going to establish a quorum and find out if everybody here approves of this form of meeting. Virginia Fenwick?
Ginny approves.
Steve?
Steve DeBoer approves.
Paul?
All C. Simple approves.
David S. Nixon approves.
Ed?
Ed approves.
And
And
David.
David H. Veach, I approve.
Okay, so we have a quorum. Then the way the meetings are conducted are as follows. We've had our roll call, members of the board. If any citizens or non-board members are participating via the phone, please give your name and the last 4 digits of your phone number when recognized by the chair. The hearing notice will be read by Sarah Clark, our central permitting coordinator to my right. And then you, or your representative, will present your appeal or application. Anyone in favor will have an opportunity to voice their opinion. Then I will read the correspondences. After that, anyone opposed or that has a question will be able to chime in. And then board members will ask questions. We'll get further information, and then we close the public hearing. There'll be a deliberation portion, which is after the hearing is closed, so there'll be no further input once we close the hearing. And then we deliberate and we vote on the application most of the time. Votes are taken by roll call, and at the end of the meeting, we will close via verbal confirmation, and we will note the time of adjournment. And also, I want to mention that we have our building commissioner, Jay Briggs, here, and we also have Chantel Kilkenny, administrative assistants, and we are made possible for your viewing by Channel 8, Mark Van Bork and Brianna Fitzpatrick. And basically, that is it for this portion, and we will talk about who is voting today, and that will be David Veach, David Nixon, Paul Semple, Virginia Fenwick, and myself, Randy Potash. And if anyone needs to recuse themselves for any matter, then one of our associates, either Ed Acton or Steve DeBoer, will be the voter. We'll see about that later. And without any further ado, Paul, we have 2 sets of minutes.
Yes, we have 2 sets of minutes. We'll do them separately. The first is a meeting held on March 21, 2024. I'll move to accept those minutes as published.
And Dave Veach seconds.
Okay, roll call vote on that. Dave Veach?
Veach votes yes.
Dave Nixon?
Yes.
Virginia Fenwick?
Ginny votes yes.
Paul?
All vote yes.
And I vote yes.
And the second set of minutes is for the meeting held March 28, 2024. I'll move acceptance of those minutes.
Dave Veach seconds.
Are there any adjustments? Anybody? No? Okay. Roll call. Virginia?
Ginny votes yes.
And Paul?
All vote yes?
David?
Yes.
And David
Veach votes yes.
As do I. Okay, then. First application, Sarah.
Application number 23-129, David and Sheila Hepp, care of William G. Litchfield Esquire, 330 Orleans Road, North Chatham, Mass. 02650. Owners of property located at 22 Hilltop Lane, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 9B, Block 29, Lot 17. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a non-conforming dwelling on a conforming lot via the construction of additions, decks, and a garage with habitable space above. The existing dwelling is non-conforming in that the uppermost level exceeds 50% of the floor below by 80 square feet, and the existing building height is 32.1 feet, where 30 feet is the maximum allowed. The proposed uppermost level will be non-conforming in that it will exceed the allowable 50% by 207 square feet. No changes proposed to the building height. Also proposed is the construction of a conforming additions and garage with habitable space. The existing building coverage is 2,342 square feet, and the proposed building coverage is 2,989 square feet, where 3,000 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot contains 28,210 square feet in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw. This was continued from February 8th, 2024.
Mr. Litchfield, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Bill Litchfield here on behalf of David and Sheila Hepp. With me today is Peter McDonald, the architect. Also with me today is Peter McDonald, who has been working with the Hepps for several months in regard to this proposal. We thank you for your consideration in allowing a continuance when we were before you, scheduled before you earlier in the year, because we had some revisions to the plans. And it would probably also be best, knowing that this board has good memories, to talk about a situation in regard to a neighboring property. The HEP spoke, expressing some concerns about that, and they and the Romaines, who were their neighbors, have worked those differences out. They're completely supportive of what you already approved for their neighbors, and their neighbors, I should begin by telling you, have no objection to this proposal. So those of you who may remember some prior discussions in, I think, January, can be assuaged of any concerns in that regard. Sarah, I don't know whether you want to bring up a site plan or house plan, whatever you want, but the Hepps have owned this property since 2020. They are looking forward to using it on a more year-round basis, not with immediate retirement, but with the goal for doing that. And beyond that, David has some octogenarian parents who come and spend the summer with them, and they'd like those folks to be able to live on the first floor, which means that David and Sheila have to move. And what they would like to do is to move up to the uppermost floor and expand that a little bit. Now, under our bylaw, there is an existing nonconformity as to that second or uppermost floor. Under the bylaw, it says that the uppermost floor can't have more than 50% of the floor area below it, of the floor area immediately below it. It already does. That is a typical nonconformity. It's not necessarily a nonconformity with which you deal at every hearing, but it's nonetheless an aspect of our bylaw, and the house is nonconforming in that regard. We are requesting a slight expansion, 127 square feet of that floor, but that is the only nonconformity involved. In fact, we are eliminating a nonconformity. So let me talk to you about the plans, and Peter can talk about the architectural plans if you have any questions, but I'll go into the criteria. Maybe the site plan would be something to bring up, Sarah. We have a completely conforming lot at 140% of what's required. This is the R20 zone. We have a good-sized lot with 28,000 square feet of space. So the lot itself is non-conforming. We have at present a nonconformity as to the sideline, which we are eliminating, and we have, for reasons which I don't understand and the Hepps don't understand, and we don't know when it happened, but we have a house that is a foot or so over the height limit. long before the Heps ever owned the property. But what we are proposing to do is to construct a completely conforming two-car garage with living space above. The Heps have adult daughters, and they may someday have grandchildren and things like that, but it's for family purposes largely. But as you know, the notion of a garage is not an unusual request, and again, that portion of what we're requesting does conform completely. So I'll go into the criteria as to adequacy of site, including building coverage and setbacks, notwithstanding nonconformities as to the sideline and the height. I think you can find the site is certainly adequate for what is there now in the R20 zone. I think you can also find that the site is adequate for construction of a garage, for a small expansion of the uppermost floor, and conversion of a screened porch on the southwest side to a sunroom, which will also conform. The sideline nonconformity on the west side will be eliminated, and while coverage increases, the coverage will conform. Almost all of that coverage is from the garage. And Mr. Veach may raise the question, and others of you will think about it, as did I. We recognize we are close to the coverage limitation, and we have had discussion about corner boards and things like that. So when the property, if you approve the special permit, as we hope you will do, we will be very mindful that Mr. Briggs requires an as-built plan, and we will be below and not above what you approve and below that 3,000 square feet. But almost all of the coverage expansion is from the garage. As to compatibility of size with the neighborhood, the lot is in the mid-range for the neighborhood. This is one of the few lots in West Chatham that is conforming. Most are not. There are some near the water that are quite large. But the footprint is also in line with others in the neighborhood. If you approve the special permit, it will remain compatible. The numbers obviously increase, but the site benefits from the layout of the road. Hilltop Lane, as you know from having been out there, is not exactly a thoroughfare. It is really a right-of-way, although it was laid out many years ago by the town, so it is a road, and thus we have frontage. But to the left or west side, we have a vacant lot, or east to the west side, we have a vacant lot. We're also considerably far back from Barn Hill, so to the degree that there is going to be a change, it will remain compatible. And much of the increased gross floor area, 2,600 square feet of that gross floor area, is basement and garage. 2,000 square feet comes from the garage, and from the basement, rather. And we, of course, know the gross floor area includes basement, but basements below grade don't have any impact on the size of the house, at least as far as the world knows. As to the extent of increase in nonconformity, it's 127 square feet on the uppermost story, but there's no change in the height of the building. The other changes in the garage meet all dimensional requirements. As to suitability of site, we have a residential lot in a purely residential neighborhood. I think that you can find the site is suitable for the garage, and it and the other modifications are without impact on the natural environment. As to scale, sighting, mass, views, and vistas, the existing house, while non-conforming, is consistent with the scale and sighting of the neighborhood. There's no unified neighborhood style. It was originally largely a summer neighborhood, cottage colony and the like, but it is without impact on views and vistas. If you approve the special permit, the scale remains appropriate. The architectural plans echo the existing home. There is really no impact on streetscape such as it is. And again, it's distant from other houses and not readily visible from Barn Hill. The use will remain compatible, and as to adequacy of water and sewer, we have town water. We will be connecting to town sewer. The chair will later read a comment from the health agent indicating that she has no concerns. The other criteria, traffic flow and safety, noise and litter, and adequacy of utilities are not really at issue. Thank you, Sarah. That is the view of the house from the east side, when the relatively few neighbors going up and down Hilltop Road come in. I think that's the east, is it not? It is the east elevation. That is what they will see as they go down that shell roadway. So the overall question, as you know, is whether the proposed addition of a conforming garage, a small increase in the living space on the uppermost floor, and conversion of the screen porch on the west side to a sunroom, while eliminating the sideline encroachment, but still meeting all coverage limitations and all other setback requirements, is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the current non-conforming structure on a conforming lot. Coverage obviously increases, but it's below the limit, and it's mostly from the understandable goal of having a garage. Consideration was given to various designs and alternatives. The HEPs worked with Peter's firm for quite some time on this. They have assured their neighbors that the northerly side of the garage, which you see when coming up from Barn Hill onto Hilltop, will be re-landscaped to preserve the quiet and peaceful feel of entry to the Hilltop Lane neighborhood. They were in touch with all of their neighbors, and Jennifer and Steve Dewey at 35 Hilltop, as well as Press and Kay Romaine at 351 Barn Hill, have indicated that they have no objections whatsoever to this proposal. The changes will, if you approve them, will facilitate multi-generational family use with an eye toward eventual year-round occupancy. In light of the criteria and the plans as they are presented to you today, and Peter can certainly add anything he would like to do, I think that you can find the proposed changes are not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please raise your hand or indicate online. Seeing none, I will read the one correspondence from Judith Giorgio, our health agent, who writes on 2/6/24, I have reviewed the plan to renovate the property. The existing dwelling has 4 bedrooms, and there is no increase in septic flow proposed. The new addition will not encroach on the septic system. I have no concerns. So now, is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? Seeing none? Okay, questions from the board. Ginny?
Just one question. You did mention at the beginning that this was continued because there was change in design plans, but I did a comparison. I didn't see any changes in the design.
They were minimal. I'll ask
Okay.
Peter to come up and, if I could, Madam
Okay.
Chairman, ask Peter
Yes.
to respond to that. They were not major, but we wanted to make sure everything was correct, so I'll,
Okay.
My understanding, I wasn't at the first hearing, and there was some,
Could you identify yourself,
I'm
please?
sorry, Peter McDonald. I wasn't at the first hearing, but my understanding was there was some difficulty in reading my plan, because some lines were light, so our changes to our plans were pretty much graphic, not substantial or substantive.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I didn't
No, we didn't,
missing something.
it's the
but-
same
okay.
house, it's just hopefully drawn so you can see it a little better.
Okay, thank you.
So there's no changes?
clarified is the best
Clarified.
word for them.
Okay. Steve, questions?
Is the proposed garage,
There was one thing, if I may interrupt, we added some steps from
Okay.
the second, there's a deck off the second floor, and we changed the steps, we added some steps from there to over the screen porch. There's a screen porch on the south side
of the garage?
of the house. There it is. This is a laser? Cool. Does it work?
Yes, it does.
Oh, okay. So right here, that's the top of the screen porch, and we put it up, I think, 1.5 feet, and so we had to put a couple steps. That's the only substantial change. Sorry, I forgot about that piece.
That's okay. All right, thank you. All right, Steve?
The proposed garage, is that directly attached to that?
No.
The reconstructed
There is
deck?
a reconfigured deck, but
Right.
there's no coverage between the two.
But it's connected to the deck? Or it's, it looks like there's a set of stairs that go up behind it to a,
Yeah,
to a
it
deck
is
that's behind
connected to the
garage?
deck,
Okay.
as far as I know.
Yes.
It is.
Okay. And it's accessed, you have to go out of the house, I guess, across the deck and then up a flight of stairs. Okay. All right, thank you.
There is an interesting notion that if we had connected the garage with a floor, you know, we might have gotten with it, because that would have second floor living space on it. We might have eliminated the nonconformity as to the uppermost story being more than 50%, but that was too complex, and my trying to explain it would be even more complex.
Okay, Paul, questions?
Yeah, let me just make sure I understand. You're going to have living space, bathroom and so forth above the garage? So are you eliminating a bathroom?
Connecting to town sewer.
Okay.
Under the water and sewer regulations, you can get the additional bedroom that you could have gotten had you put in an IA system. So this entire thing, I think it's noted on the plan, it is somewhere there, yes, that we are connecting to town sewer.
Okay.
And there are, if Sarah slides that down a little bit, the plant the other way, the other direction, noted on there are the sewer covers and the sewer connection right by the H in Hilltop Lane.
Okay. My second question, maybe to Jay or to you, and that is, what's the purpose of the limitation with respect to the 50% figure on the second floor or above floor?
I have spent the last 40 years, maybe longer than that, waiting for someone to explain the purpose of our bylaw. The bylaw says we can have 2.5 stories. You can have either a finished basement or a finished attic, but you can't have both. We have an unfinished basement, so there are no issues there, but the half story is defined in the bylaw as being not more than 50% of the story below. Why, Mr. Semple? I defer to Mr. Briggs, but that's the rule.
Jay?
It's just another limitation on building height. We have the 30-foot building height or 2.5 stories. So why it was done that way, I don't know. But Mr. Litchfield's right. The uppermost story can only be up to 50% of area of the floor next below.
So from your viewpoint, do you have any problem with the idea of expanding beyond the already existing nonconformity as to that percentage?
Well, that's why we're here, right? They're over the 50% already, and they want to go further beyond the 50%.
Okay. All right, I don't have any other questions.
Dave Nixon, questions?
You know, when I say something like this, I say, so how did it get to 32 feet? And there's some, you know, some different answers to that question. Sarah, when was this built?
The assessor's records indicate 2003.
So that's when it became 32 feet.
Correct.
And we didn't have what we have now. Yeah.
In
Yeah, and
2003,
many
final
questions.
as-built and height certifications weren't
Yeah.
required by the building
Yeah.
department.
So that wasn't that long ago, was it?
21 years.
Just a drop in the bucket. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's not a question that anybody here can answer, but it does bother me that it's 32 feet.
And we understand, we've also been kind of confused about it. Obviously, the HEPS had nothing to do with it. And the house now exists, I think, given its location, to the degree that it is 1.5 feet taller than it should be, or 2 feet. It's not a burden on the neighborhood, and again, we're not increasing the height.
Last question. Sarah, can you tell me who it was that was the builder?
No, I cannot.
Wasn't it you? Was it Mr. Veach? No. Oh, okay.
All right. All set, Dave? Oh, yeah. All right, Ed Acton, questions?
No questions. I think we've covered what I was thinking as well.
Dave Veach, questions?
Yeah, I have a few questions. So, first one, Bill, just to clarify, you've mentioned, I believe you mentioned 127 square feet proposed addition to the attic level. The drawings indicate 264 square feet to me. Can we clarify that?
I'll ask Peter to, I actually took it from the legal ad, going from 80 to 207. If I'm wrong, it's my error.
There is also an increase on the floor below that, so that's why it's only 207. The increase
Right.
is 264.
Thank you.
But with the floor below, it's
Right,
only 207.
right. So, okay, that's my first question. So then I'd like to delve a little bit into this question of the nonconformities. And some of these are some questions that I've asked of Sarah already, and I just want to try to.
David, if I could just interrupt for 1
Yep.
sec, just to clarify the last part. The
Yep.
second, the 2.5 floor, the uppermost
Yep.
floor, currently is 494 square feet. It will be 758.
Right, that's the 264 difference I
Yep.
was putting in. Okay.
Sorry.
So, I mean, I'm struggling too, and I'm struggling with these nonconformities came to us in a way that's very different from most of the nonconformities that we see. And because clearly, and for whatever reason, when we know, I don't think any of us can explain it, but at the time that the building was constructed, the grade plane was the standard for the height. And, you know, I'm getting, I guess, a little away from questions, but I'm going to try to integrate this. But I don't see, I mean, I see the grade has, it's not like the grade falls off and they could have made a 2-foot error by, you know, that's hard for me to understand. So, and the floor area definition has been, how long has that's been in the bylaw for a long time? Do you know, Bill? I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know.
Jay probably doesn't know how long it's been there, right? No. Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, that's the question. How could either of these have come to be? And I don't know that, I mean, I don't think any of us are truly qualified, but I'm open to any suggestions.
Well, if I could try to respond, and I understand the concern, the statutory changes to the state zoning law, I think, more legitimize this than they would otherwise, because there is already a provision that if something is built with a building permit, which this clearly was, that it's grandfathered, and then the 2016 amendments to the statute, and I can't quote the acts of 2016 exactly, but it essentially says, this is like the 81L issue, that they become non-conforming after a period of time.
Right, and that was going to be one of my next questions, what year? That was 2016. I know it's been since I've been on the board. So prior to that, a situation which clarified, basically made a situation like this, a pre-existing non-conforming, eligible to petition us for extension or change. How, prior to that, was there like some kind of purgatory, or was it by town? Did towns, it was by interpretation? What?
Well, I mean, Jay may be able to answer that, but, you know, rules and interpretation of rules and statutes evolve. There was a time that, as you know, you could, by dint of a special permit, create new nonconformities without a variance. That was until 2014.
Right.
And we did that all the time. There was also until, I don't know, 8 years ago, give or take, if you had a conforming addition to Bjorkland, if you were proposing a conforming addition to a non-conforming house on a non-conforming lot, you didn't have to come to the ZBA. So it's a gradual evolution, and we understand why we're here, because we have a non-conforming house. We had nothing to do with it, but we are validly non-conforming, and we're simply asking for a change to it.
And granted, and I do try to take into account past interpretations as well. It just seems to me it's fairly striking how how much these are non-conforming, given the situation. But as you describe it, it's true. Did they, Jay, did they get a certificate of occupancy? Do we have anything of that on file?
They did get occupancy and.
They did get an occupancy certificate.
Yes.
Okay.
So the house would have been completed per the assessor's records.
Well, Sarah's looking that up.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know, I didn't look it up, but they've got a walkout, a retaining wall. And I don't know if that was original to the original build, or if that might have lowered the grade plane and caused an overage on the overall building height.
All I can think of is that actually works against the way I would see it, because, you know, the grade is right up there. It's like, you know, 50 at some points, and the top of the foundation is 50.8. That's about as high as you can get a grade to the top of foundation. And some of the other spots are 47, 48, 49. So it looks like maybe it was filled in, but that would have been taken into account in the original, I would think, calculations of grade plane. You can't, there's no room there to put in more fill to drop the you know, to raise the grade plane.
But lowering the grade would lower the grade plane and elevate the
Make the
building
house
height.
taller.
Would make it taller, wouldn't it? Would it make it taller? We're getting off.
We're guessing.
It might, I don't know, it's, yeah. So, okay. Just a couple other little things. So, and Peter, I noticed, and maybe this is part of the confusion in a way, on one of your drawings, I noticed that you showed and also John O'Reilly's site plan references this, says that, well, the drawing shows 30 feet 4 inches from the grade plane to the ridge, which I'm thinking that's an error.
That must be an error. I go with John O'Reilly's.
Could you step to the mic, please, when
Oh,
you,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Yeah, I would go with John O'Reilly's number on that.
I think so. John O'Reilly, basically, he shot the top, got the foundation at 81.1, and then he added the 30.4, or 30.3, I guess it is, and added that to get to the maximum allowed. Yeah, I think in terms of questions, I think that's all I have for now. Thanks.
If I could
Yeah.
just try to follow up, Madam Chairman,
Sure.
to what I think one of the questions that Mr. Beach was underlying issue that may be of concern. The fact that we have more than 50% of the uppermost floor of the floor below it is invisible. Not saying it's right, but it nonetheless exists. Similarly, we are too tall. If we were proposing to increase the height that came from something 23 years ago that none of us understand, that, I think, would be perhaps a more legitimate worry, but we're not. The inadvertent event that happened 20-odd years ago, if changed, will have no impact on the neighborhood because
Okay.
it can't be seen.
So Randy, I do have one more question.
Yeah, please.
So then, I'll put this in the form of a question. If you were proposing, and which Sarah has indicated to me that these parts of parts of this don't require a special permit, garage, and the conforming additions to this sunroom and the screen porch. If you were proposing to add, as you're showing, to add a second floor over the sunroom addition, and you were not proposing to expand the attic, that would bring it into a conforming situation.
That would be up to Mr. Briggs to determine. You're saying, would we have to come here if we weren't doing anything on the uppermost floor?
Well, Okay, that's probably true, but it does, show- I mean, just looking at the numbers, where, the existing 494 square feet of attic space is over, it's 80 square feet over the 50% of the existing second floor. The proposal for the second floor is to increase the square footage to 1,102 square feet. 50% of that, 551 square feet. That, now the existing 494 square feet is now 57 square feet below.
Yeah, I see the number you're talking about. The second floor now is 828, it's going to 1102. If
Right.
the uppermost floor remained 494, we'd below, we would be
You have
below 50%.
eliminated one of another nonconformity in addition to the sideline setback.
We feel 1 out of 2 is pretty good. If it were baseball, it'd be 500 and we'd be leading the league, so.
Well, it's just something that jumped out at me.
No, it's a good point. I hadn't considered that, but you're right on the numbers.
Okay, thanks. That's all.
Okay, so I have a couple questions. I just want to clarify. So just to go back to the garage for one moment. So you're proposing the garage be 27 feet, I think? Because allowed is 79, the ridge, and proposed is 76. So I just want to make sure I have that right.
I can't even read, this is so small. Are you going by a number on my drawing?
I don't,
Or going by
I took
what?
some notes, so I don't remember exactly where I took them from. Probably, site plan, yeah.
The height of the square footage, I'm sorry.
No, the height of the garage. If you want to do it in feet, I think it's 27. I just want to make sure that's accurate.
That seems pretty close.
Because allowed is 79, and the garage proposed is 76. And so if
Yeah,
79 is,
the numbers are right,
right?
yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a tall garage, but anyway, so that's one thing. And then another is, so right now you're 80 square feet over on the attic, so to speak, and you want to be 2.5 times more over than you are. Because you want to end up 207, which is, if you're 80 now, that's 2.5 times as
Yeah,
much.
the 127 square foot increase.
Yeah, okay, so I just want to put it in perspective. But, okay,
That's the 268 square foot increase, not the.
Yeah, the net increase is 127. The second floor, or the attic, as I said, is going from 494 to 758.
yeah, so it's 2.5 times more non-conforming in an already non-conforming scenario where your height is already over. So it exacerbates it.
No question, that's why we're here.
No, I know, okay.
The degree of increase is, that we can calculate any way that you want, but I understand the numbers.
Okay,
If I may,
yes,
what generated this new bathroom and the new space is because right now there's a very small bathroom there. David is how tall? 6'5"-ish, and he can't stand up in it.
yeah. Well,
So that's why we're doing
it's
this.
not even supposed to be there in the first place, so you have an amount of sympathy on that, but,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, when you think about it.
The floor itself it's just more than it should be.
Right, yes, yes. Because we're not supposed to have 3-story buildings, essentially. I think that's, at the end of the day, that's the reason for the bylaw, so we don't have 3-story buildings, right?
Which we do not, again, the bylaw says that, well, it's currently 828 on the second floor, and the floor above is 494.
Yeah.
It is certainly a lesser structure than the floor below it.
Yeah, okay. So, I don't have any more questions. I want to take the moment to say if anyone's cell phone is on at all now, even on vibrate, if you could kindly shut it off, because we can even hear the vibrate when that happens. Okay, so, Paul,
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
David
and
seconds.
how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Paul, Dave Dixon,
Yes.
Paul,
Vote yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
As do I. Okay, deliberations. I'm going to just start with Dave Veach.
Well, it's sort of somewhat uncharacteristically for me, you know, some things just jumped out at me here, and I've tried to clarify how I saw, or what I felt I was seeing. I understand the reasons, some of the reasons why they're asking to expand that attic floor. But I guess I just have to come down on, you know, first of all, despite the history and everything, I have to, I guess my overall take with respect to these existing nonconformities is they don't match the spirit and intent of the bylaw, basically. You know, when we have other kinds of nonconformities that come to us because zoning got overlaid on either, you know, totally pre-existing properties or properties that got rezoned from maybe R10 to R20 or 30 or 40 or 60 even, and created new setback nonconformities and things like that. In my mind, when those things take place, the existing are presumed to have been, to be okay. And gives this board, via state law and the town bylaws, gives us the ability to assess, you know, you know, whether it's substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood or not, et cetera. And I think we do a very good job of that. In this case, honestly, I have to say, I don't necessarily find that the scale, siding, and mass are hugely negatively affected here. They are proposing they're not increasing the height nonconformity, but they are extending it by almost 50% of the existing ridge length, adding another 16 feet to what's already 34, 35 feet. And I just, because of the way these nonconformities came about, and I know that we are, and I don't know whether the courts have said much about this, you know, and looking at our criteria and things, but I feel that these kinds of nonconformities are different than some of these other ones, and I think that we, you know, I see it again. I don't see it as being keeping with the spirit and intent of the bylaw. So that, despite I can understand the need for it and the desire, or the desire for it, but they've already got quite a bit up there. There's also a 190 square foot deck that doesn't count in any of the square footage or anything. They can do the expansion to the second floor, the first floor, or second floor, eliminate the half area nonconformity on the third floor. That's what I would suggest they do.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
Well, I agree with Dave. My impression is that we're taking a situation that shouldn't exist and we're permitting it to be added on to. And I don't see that as consistent with the bylaw. So I tend to agree with David and his assessment of what should be happening here.
Okay, thank you. Ginny?
Well, I can't really add anything else to what Dave and Paul said. They really summed it up very well, and I would agree with what they said.
And Dave Nixon?
Well, I'm not happy about it, but I don't want to penalize the owner of the property. And that's what we're doing if we follow what we're thinking here. I don't think it's fair to them. And if we go to, is this going to be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood? No. I mean, it's not going to bother anybody around them, the site of the house, you know. It's just, so the garage is going to go in and all that. That's what they're going to see. They're not going to see the extra square footage on the third floor, or whatever floor you want to call it. So I don't think we should penalize the applicant, because at the end of the day, this is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Ed Acton, your thoughts on deliberation?
I certainly don't want to penalize the homeowners for something they've inherited, but they are, increasing a nonconformity that they inherited that shouldn't be there. I guess if I was, voting today, I would probably agree with my other colleagues that that extra, dormer up on the third floor, I don't think I could vote for that.
And Steve DeMoore, deliberation.
Well, I guess there's a few things that I want to sort of reflect on. The 32-foot height, they inherited it. There's not too much we can do about that now. But they are increasing the square footage of that floor, and you might be able to work out something else. There's other additions on this house that maybe that living space could be added to above some of the proposals. So increasing that nonconformity, I think there's ways around that. I don't think that's totally necessary. The other thing that sort of brings pause to me is that the fact that I'm kind of a symmetry guy. So if you look at the front elevation, it's on page A5. You've sort of got, on the left side of the house, you've got what is now basically a flat roof with a deck. Then you've got a non-conforming sort of center gable that it's being proposed to add more space to and make it more massive as far as I'm concerned. Then you've got a sort of a subordinate, I think where the living room is, gable end, which is about 20 feet tall. But there's no mention of the deck that's to the right of that living room and the garage, which is going to be a nearly 30-foot gambrel. So in the same house, you've got 3 different roof styles. And the fact that the garage it's part of the front elevation, whether it's added to the square footage or not, or what it's being used for. And I'm kind of disappointed that you can't see the whole house in one snapshot. And the fact that the nonconformity for the second floor or third floor is being increased, where I think that living space might be added someplace else, so that we wouldn't have that nonconformity.
Okay, thank you. Well, actually, my mic wasn't on, sorry, thank you. You can count. What would you like to do?
I haven't had a chance to speak to my client, but the Zoning Board of Appeals approval requires 4 votes, and as the chair indicated, I can count. So the normal course would be to request that the board allow us to withdraw without prejudice, which affords us an opportunity to come back as soon as you and Mr. McDonald come up with alternate plans. Shall I?
We're happy to withdraw.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ask a request of the board that you allow us to withdraw without prejudice.
Okay, Paul?
I move that we grant the requested withdrawal without prejudice.
Dave Veach seconds.
And how do you vote?
Votes yes.
And Dave Nixon?
Yes?
And Jenny?
Jenny votes yes.
Paul?
Yes.
As do I. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice day. All right, Sarah, whenever you're ready. Next up.
Application number 24-033, John and Jen, a Little John, care of SV Design LLC, 693 Main Street, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owners of property located at 96 A Leonard Way, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 9J, Block 6A, Lot LP 29. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a non-conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the construction of an addition. The existing dwelling is non-conforming, and it is located 33 feet from the road, where a 40-foot setback is required, 19.6 feet from the westerly abutter, and 16.1 feet from the easterly abutter, where a 25-foot setback is required. The proposed addition will comply with road and abutter setback requirements. The existing building coverage is 3,250 square feet, 10.3%, and the proposed building coverage is 3,427 square feet, 10.8%, or 10% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 125 feet of frontage where 150 feet is required, and contains 48,560 square feet where 60,000 square feet is required in the R60 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protected bylaw.
Welcome. If you could kindly state your name.
Good afternoon, Paul Muldoon here from SV Design, representing Jim and Jana Littlejohn and their project at 96 A Leonard Way. As Sarah indicated, we do have a non-conforming lot here. The original house was built on a lot that was developed before 1987, so it was conforming at the time of its construction, and has since transitioned to an R60, creating the nonconformity on the front and side yard setbacks. Our modest screen porch addition here is placed on the back of the house. You can see here in the site plan where the bend happens in the house. We have a garage structure on the northern side and the main house on the western side, and our screen porch area is sort of tucking in between. There's a small area currently of covered porch area, unscreened, and we're encapsulating that within our new screened porch area. The addition will increase the nonconformity of lot coverage. We're currently at 10.3%. 177 square feet of addition goes to 10.8%. With that, I'm happy to, this is a great representation of the massing of where we're adding and how we're adding. You can see that area of covered porch there and the existing on the left, and on the right we're simply dragging the roof line of where the kitchen meets the main house over our new screen porched area. The area itself is, there's a 100-foot buffer zone nearby. We're not in the buffer zone, but it is nearby, and some conservation land behind the house. Sitting on the back porch at the golden hour is challenging with the amount of insects that attack. So that's the main reason for the addition, but it's for outdoor enjoyment. It's for a serviceable area that you can remain outside in the evening hours. Our addition is located on a flat of already pre-disturbed land in between the garage and the main house, and we're not disturbing any further areas of the property.
Okay, so we'll probably forego having you go through all the criteria on a small project, but anybody could bring up whatever criteria they think are applicable as we go through. And you also submitted in writing, which we appreciate, so we have that for the record. Is there anyone here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate. Seeing none. I will read the correspondence. There are 6 altogether. First one from the health agent, Judith Giorgio, on Tuesday, April 23rd. She writes, I have no concerns about the proposed screen room addition at this property. Then we have a letter from Nancy Kissel and she lives at 52 A Leonard Way. She writes on April 19th, 2024, I approve issuing the special permit for the construction of an addition at 96A Leonard Way. And then we have a letter from Mary McLaughlin, and that's written also on April 19th, 2024. She lives at, 103 A Leonard Way, and she says, we support granting the special permit for this application. Then we have a letter from Shirley Hagyard, and she lives at 106 A Leonard Way, confirming her support for John and Jana Littlejohn's requested porch addition. And we have a letter from the Chasmatic at gmail.com, and they write on April, Charles and Patricia Bonanno, okay? Both are identification of this letter, and they have no problem with the Little John's request to add a second screen porch to their, home, their neighbors, and that's that. Then we have one more letter here from Scott Clary from 96 A Leonard Way. We are abutting neighbors to Jim and John Littlejohn at 96 A Leonard Way. We're in complete support of the issuance of a special permit via the ZBA to add a 3-season porch. Your consideration is appreciated. That concludes the correspondence. Is there anyone here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against or has a specific question regarding this application? If so, make it known. No. Questions from the board? Steve?
I don't think I have any questions, thank you.
Paul?
No questions.
Ginny?
I had no questions.
Dave Nixon?
No questions.
Ed Acton?
No questions.
And Dave Veach?
And I have no question.
Nor do I. Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Yes, Dave Nixon?
Yes?
Ginny?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
As do I. Deliberations. Ginny?
I thought that this was a very, well, first of all, Mr. Muldoon, I really enjoyed, appreciated this. You're absolutely right, the massing is, we've talked about 3D renderings and things like that, and it doesn't make sense for every property, but how you were able to model this just so clearly showed what you were asking for, and I do believe that it reinforces what the numbers support, which was that this is a modest request. I mean, you are asking for a little bit more in the building coverage, but it's essentially at 177 square feet, less than 2 small sheds, if you think of it in that context. And you have a lot that is 48,000 square feet. So I think it's a very modest request, and I think it meets our criteria.
What? Steve?
Yeah, I also appreciate this drawing. I think it's very helpful to see where it is in relationship to the rest of the building. A lot of the square footage that you might be adding is or it's existing, it's already being used, but it may be slightly in its different manner. So I don't have any problems with this. It's on the back of the house. It's not seen by anybody else. I don't think it's going to affect the neighborhood.
Dave Nixon?
Your rendition of the addition is what we needed on the previous hearing.
All right. Ed Acton?
Certainly not substantially detrimental to the neighborhood, so looks good.
Dave Veach?
Yeah, it meets all of our applicable criteria, and this isn't one of our criteria, but I think we should support someone with the alliterative quality of their name, John and Jana Littlejohn.
Yeah, sounds good. And Paul, we'll have your comments and then a motion.
I agree with my colleagues' comments. It's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Do we just do that?
We did.
We
no,
did do that.
Yes, now we want to,
Okay, all right, I'm ready to move then.
yeah.
It seems to me we've got no need for conditions on this one, given that the lot is large enough to contain any construction and so forth. So I'll move to approve the application as submitted.
Dave Veach seconds
And you vote?
and votes yes.
Yes.
Nixon, Ginny,
Yes.
and Paul?
All votes
As
yes.
do I. Congratulations, it's unanimous.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right. Is there anyone that needs to recuse on the next application by any chance?
Yes, I do, Randy. I need to recuse.
Okay,
I'm an
so-
indirect abutter.
All right, so we will have Steve DeBoer will be voting on this next application because one of our members is in a butter. And Sarah, whenever you're ready.
Application number 24-034. DEG Realty Trust, care of SV Design LLC, 693 Main Street, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 30 Medicash Lane, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 15G, Block 69, Lot M8. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a non-conforming accessory structure on a non-conforming lot via the conversion of the existing shed to a studio/office and the installation of exterior mechanical system appliance. The accessory structure is and will remain non-conforming and that it is located 13 feet from the northerly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. The existing exterior mechanical system appliance, pool equipment, is non-conforming, and it is located 10 feet from the northerly abutter. The proposed exterior mechanical system appliance will be non-conforming, and it will be located 11 feet from the northerly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. The building coverage will remain 2,342 square feet, 14.3%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming, and that it contains 16,400 square feet, where 40,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Good afternoon. If you could state your name, please.
Good afternoon, Sean Henry with SV Design, representing the owner, Dan Gefkin, the owner of 30 Menikesh Lane. He owns this property and spends most of his summertime here and finds himself having family and guests down. He also works from home quite a bit, and he has this existing non-conforming structure which is currently used as a shed, and he's looking to convert that to his office. So he has a place to go work, take Zoom calls while guests are using the house, and he's not disturbing them, they're not disturbing him. We are planning to infill. There is a small, I guess, wood storage that exists on the right side of the current structure. We're infilling that. We're adding some windows, moving the door around, but essentially the footprint of the building stays the same, just refreshing it and making it habitable. We are locating the mechanical equipment, a heat pump on the backside, as indicated, 11 feet from the property line, which is set back from the existing pool equipment that the previous owner installed. There is a sink that we're adding out there, and that would be connected to the existing septic. And I believe Judith has a note that she's requesting that we would have a deed restriction that this is not a bedroom. It is not per your definition, and it will not be used as one. And the owner is happy to put that deed restriction as requested.
All right. Can you just go through the applicable criteria?
Yep.
Just the few that are, please.
Number one, adequacy of the size of the site, including but not limited to the maximum lot or building coverage and setbacks. The proposed changes do not increase the building coverage or setbacks nonconformities. Lot coverage remains under the allowed percentage. Compatibility of the size of the proposed structure with neighboring properties. The structure is remaining as is. Extent of the proposed increase in nonconforming nature of the structure or use. The nonconformities do not increase, just the use is being changed. Suitability of the site, including but not limited to the impact on neighboring properties or the natural environment, including slopes, vegetation, wetlands, groundwater, bodies of water, storm runoff, landscaped areas around the structure to remain and no new roof runoff is created. Impact of scale, siting, and mass on neighborhood visual character, including views and vistas. There's no change, besides a couple of windows and doors. Compatibility of the proposed use with neighboring uses. It's a residential use in a residential neighborhood. Adequacy of method of sewage disposal, source of water and drainage. There's no increase of the sewage flow. It's connected to the existing septic system, and there is electricity already run out to the shed. And I don't believe the rest are up.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is there anyone here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate. Seeing none, I will read the correspondence. There are two. Judith Giorgio, health agent, writes on 4/23/24, I reviewed the plan to remodel the existing shed in the studio office. The plan calls for a sink area, but not toilet facilities. Since this is a detached structure, I would not consider it a bedroom. However, I would request a deed restriction stating that this structure is not a bedroom and may not be used as such. Additionally, a plan to connect the gray water sink to the septic system must be submitted to the Health Division for approval and permitting. We also have one letter from a neighbor, Bob and Peggy Black of 441 Old Harbor Road. We have been neighbors and easterly abutters of Mr. Gefkin since he bought this property at 30 Menakish Lane in 2019. The improvements he has made in those 6 years have been tasteful as well as beautiful. We feel sure our property value has increased because of his improvements. He's been a good neighbor during the last 6 years, and we live next door, and we have no doubts his application to convert the existing shed on his property to a studio office will be an enhancement, not only to his property, but to ours as well. We support the application. That concludes the correspondence. Is there anyone here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? If so, please make it known. Seeing none. Questions from the board? Ed Acton.
I have no questions.
Dave Veach.
I have no questions.
Dave Nixon.
No questions.
Paul.
No questions.
Steve.
A couple of easy ones.
Oh, go ahead. Absolutely.
Some of your drawings, let's say X1, for instance, the existing floor plan, shows an exterior sink. Assuming that sink is being removed and
It is.
added to the interior.
It is. I think it's more of a gardening sink where you would hook a hose up to it and it just drains out to the.
Okay, but this is, inside it's going to be a functional
Correct.
sink. Okay.
Correct.
There's currently one 10-foot non-conforming, I guess, and that's the pool equipment?
Correct.
So you're adding one that's 11 feet, so slightly further away.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not increasing any sort of
That is correct.
non-conformity to the rear of the building. The size, I think you said the size is not changing, the actual
Correct.
footprint of the building is not changing?
Correct.
But some of the construction might, you're adding a window and a door or something, or moving some things around, but the bones of the structure is gonna stay the same.
Correct.
Okay. That's it, thank you.
Okay, Ginny, questions? Oh, yes, that's right. Sorry. I have a question. Did you talk to any of the neighbors in the back there, right near where the shed is?
I don't believe we have, no.
Okay. That's all I had. Paul,
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
and you
Dan
vote?
votes yes.
And Dave Nixon?
Yes.
And Steve?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Okay, as do I. So deliberations. Dave Veach?
Well, this is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. It meets our criteria. By the way, beautiful landscaping on that property. Wow, just amazing. But no, I will support it.
Okay. Ed, deliberations.
No, it seems a modest request and certainly won't be detrimental to the neighborhood. And we didn't hear anything from the abutters that are closest, so seems everyone's okay with it. Thanks.
Dave Nixon?
I agree with the previous two.
All right. Steve?
I agree with everyone else. You're expecting to comply with the requests from the Board of Health,
Correct.
I assume? right?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Paul?
I also agree. I don't think it's substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
All right, and I don't think it's more substantially detrimental, but I think it's really maxing out the property. There's a lot going on there. And because it's not enlarged, the structure, I'll go along with it. Any conditions?
Well, I'll move to approve it. I don't know that there's any need for conditions other than that all vehicles and construction activity be contained on site.
Is that okay with you, sir?
That's acceptable, yep.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll move to approve the application with the condition that all construction activity and vehicles be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner, and that a deed restriction consistent with that recommended by the town health agent be included as a condition.
Very good.
Dave Veach seconds,
And you vote?
and votes yes.
Dave Nixon?
I vote yes.
And Steve?
Steve DeBoer votes yes.
Paul?
And I'll vote yes.
As do I. It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Great, thank you very
Good
much.
luck. All right, whenever you're ready, Sarah, we have 24-036, I think? Oh, yes, that's right. Sorry, we do have to do 24-035 for the record. Yes.
Application number 24-035, revocable trust of Stephen A. Brighton and Stacy A. Brighton, care of William G. Litchfield Esquire, 330 Orleans Road, North Chatham, Mass. 02650. Owners of property located at 500 Shore Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessors Map 16G, Block 3D, Lot A5. The applicant seeks to construct an elevated stairway and landings under Section 4A3A of the Protective Bylaw. The lot contains 39,100 square feet in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, and Section 8D2B of the Protective Bylaw.
Attorney Litchfield, welcome back.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Appreciate your allowing me to come back. On behalf of the applicant, Steve and Briarton, the Briarton Trust, I'm sorry, Steve Briarton and Stacy Fluck, who are the trustees, we would ask that you continue this matter until May 30th. We filed originally with the Conservation Commission for order of conditions for shoreline stabilization, and subsequently filed an amended order to construct the stairs. The Conservation Commission has allowed the amended order, but they will not be able to hear it until after today. They'll be hearing it on May 8. So given the nature of this request, we thought you would want conservation review, and thus asking her to continue it. And we may be filing slightly revised plans, which will have addressed concerns that the Conservation Commission has already expressed.
Very good, very good. Paul?
I'll move to grant the requested continuance to May 30th, 2024.
And Dave Veach seconds,
How do you
and
vote?
votes yes.
Dave Nixon?
Just one quick question. Sarah, how many does that give us on the 30th?
We will have 6 on May 30th.
Okay.
Okay, Ginny?
Yes.
Yep.
I vote yes.
And Paul?
All votes yes.
As do I. It's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
We'll be watching the conservation hearing.
And I will be brief because I will be 6th on the 30th.
All right, it's okay. All right, now we will get to 24-036, Sarah, when you're ready.
Application number 24-036. LKSA Trust, Sidney Cook trustee, care of William G. Litchfield Esquire, 330 Orleans Road, North Chatham, Mass. 02650. Owner of property located at 255 Old Harbor Road, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessors Map 15F Block 11, Lot G1. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a non-conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the expansion of a covered porch. The existing dwelling is non-conforming, and it is located 18.8 feet from the road. The proposed extended porch will be non-conforming, in that it will be located 18.6 feet from the road where a 25-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 2,551 square feet, 16.5%, and the proposed building coverage is 2,652 square feet, 17.2%, where 15%, but not more than 2,800 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 15,403 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Mr. Litchfield?
Thank you. Good afternoon once again. Bill Litchfield here on behalf of Sidney Cook, who is trustee for the family that owns, the Cook family that owns this house on 255 Old Harbor Road. This is a very simple request. We are simply asking to square off and connect the two porches that are on the south and east side of the house. The house has been there since 1820 there, as shown there. And that dumpster is not the way we ordinarily have the house appear. It's just an unfortunate timing. But the Cooks are doing significant renovations to the house. They're getting rid of the vinyl siding, replacing it with wood clapboards, No one has done that in recent history, and I think it's a wonderful thing. Maintenance is another issue, but they're concerned about historic preservation. And as part of that, they would like to square off that kind of curious-looking gap so that what you would end up with is as shown there. So in the interest of your time and the fact this is a simple request, I'll go into the criteria as to adequacy of site and building coverage and setbacks. The house is adequate for the site is adequate, rather, for a house built in approximately 1820, notwithstanding its quote excess unquote coverage and proximity to the street. I think you can find it to be adequate for squaring off of the covered porch, which modestly increases coverage, but it's also an aesthetic improvement. As to compatibility of size, the area was developed long before zoning. If you approve the special permit, it will remain compatible. There's no change in living area or gross floor area. As to the extent of increase in nonconformity, the porch will be 2/10 of a foot, which is about 2.5 inches, I guess, closer to the street, and coverage increases by 101 square feet. And as to suitability of site, the site has been is suitable for residential use as it has been for a couple of centuries, and it will be suitable for the squared-off porch. As to scale, sighting, mass, and views and vistas, the scale and the mass are not impacted by the addition to the porch. It does increase coverage, but with a positive impact on streetscape. There's no change in use. There's no plumbing or sewage or noise or litter resulting from squaring off of the porch. The issue is, as you know, whether this presents a substantial detriment. I think that you can find that squaring off of the front porch with a modest increase in coverage and a minimal change in the setback is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. The mass, the word mass, is really inapplicable to a covered porch without sidewalls, and there's no change, as I indicated, in either gross floor area or living area. Rather, it's a simple architectural change that will be an improvement to what is already an award-winning house. The owners, as I indicated, will also be replacing the vinyl siding with cedar clapboards, removing the aluminum wrap, which now covers the trim, and restoring or replacing much of the detail of the house. It's part of the ongoing restoration and preservation of the Elisha Small House. I think that you can readily find that the proposed small addition is not substantially more detrimental. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please make it known. Seeing none, I will read the correspondence. First, we have a letter from Judith Giorgio, our health agent, written on April 23rd, 2024. I have no concerns regarding the expansion of the covered porch at this property. And then we have a letter from Christina Bassett, she of the Historical Commission. The CHC heard this application on April 16th, 2024, reaffirming that the home is historically significant and that the proposed changes do not materially diminish the home's historical significance, so they do not impose a demolition delay. And that was on April 23rd, 2024. That concludes the correspondence. If there's anyone here on Microsoft Teams with a question or wishes to speak against this application, please indicate. There are none.
Brad Cody.
Questions from the board?
No,
Davey?
Brad Cody.
Oh,
Hello?
yes, sir.
Yes.
Ma'am, I'm sorry.
Yes, this is Brad Cody. I did send in an email earlier today regarding this to S. Clark, and I would like for that to be read into the record.
We have time limitations on when those can be received. We may do you a solid and read it if we find it quick. We got it at 2:58 p.m., which would be 2 minutes prior to the beginning of this meeting. I'm going to use my discretion and say, I'm sorry that we're not going to read it. However, you have the opportunity now to read it. So go ahead.
Okay. I am in a butter at 247 Old Harbor Road. On the surface, we have no issues with the proposed changes being made to the house. However, the one single issue concern, and it has been an issue ever since the Cooks bought the property, is their utilization of the driveway. You'll note in the pictures that you have in front of you that there is a dumpster and there is a truck. That consists of 3 parking spaces. Those of
Okay,
you who have
so
visited the site.
I'm going to have to
those
stop
no
you, sir,
longer exist.
in that this is not related to the nature of the application, but I think the attorney has
It is
heard you.
absolutely related. It is,
All
it is
right,
absolutely related because they are utilizing the driveway as a parking spot and preventing us from exiting and entering our driveway. So I respectfully request that until they and their contractors can provide you with a suitable recommendation on where all that equipment will be, I do not want this moving forward.
all right, well, we heard
There's
you,
no-
and we'll take that in consideration with conditions, and I know the attorney is standing here, he heard everything that you said, and so, thank you for your correspondence at this point, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so questions from the board, Dave Veach?
No, I have no questions.
Okay, Ed Atkin,
No questions.
Dave Nixon?
No questions.
And Ginny, questions?
No questions about the application, but are you gonna?
Well, we'll get to
Okay.
that.
Okay, yep.
Steve, questions?
No questions.
Paul, questions?
No questions.
Okay, and I don't have any questions, but would you like a chance to rebut?
Certainly, I will pass along to the Cook family the concern as I understand it, and I haven't done the title on either property, but I will do so, and I expect that the Cooks will be good neighbors.
And we'll try to get you a copy of that letter, if that helps.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so now, Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds,
And how do
and
you
votes
vote?
yes.
Dave Nixon?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
As do I. Okay, deliberations. Paul?
Well, I think the project's a modest proposal. It looks to me as if it will improve the look of the house, and I think it's certainly not more substantially detrimental to the neighborhood.
Ginny?
Agree with Paul, a very modest request. I think it's an improvement. I applaud the preservation. It meets our criteria, not substantially more detrimental.
And Steve? Deliberations?
I think this is probably a much-needed addition. I kind of wonder why things were done the way they are done. I kind of question about if those porches even existed when the house was built. Probably not, and also the structure to the rear of the house probably didn't come with the house. But I think a way to resolve the way things look now is to add that corner, so I think it's a good project.
Okay, Dave Veach? Deliberations?
I agree with all previous. Yeah.
And Ed Atkin?
Yes, I agree with the fellow board members.
Dave Nixon?
Yeah, certainly not substantially detrimental in any way, shape, or form.
And I agree as well, and I'm glad that the caller was able to express his concerns. I mean, nobody likes the look of a dumpster, and nobody likes to be able to, be impaired in their ability to park and exit and enter their driveway, so duly noted. And at this point, Paul?
Yes, in considering conditions, I just wonder what the extent of the work is going to be, and when.
The effective date of the special permit, if the board is inclined to get it, is approximately May 25th. I don't know if this is a one-month project. It may have to wait until fall if the board is so inclined to impose a seasonal limitation.
Can I ask a question? So if we impose a seasonal limitation, does that mean that dumpster and any of these
Well, the
issues?
dumpster's not there now.
Oh, it's not?
No, that just happened to be in the photograph.
So anything with this parking issue will be resolved then?
Well, I can't guarantee
Probably.
that.
All right.
But we recognize that I assume the board is going to impose a standard limitation that we have traffic or vehicles contained in areas where either on the site or with permission.
Right. I just didn't want to prolong the agony necessarily, so.
No,
right.
that photograph was taken some months ago, and so far as it wasn't there when you went there, was it?
No, it was
No,
not
I didn't
there.
think so.
Things come and go, so you never
Sure.
know.
That's
Yeah.
why I asked.
Yeah, yeah, they do.
I'll move to approve the application as submitted with the condition that all construction activity and vehicles shall be contained on-site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. I don't think there's a need for any further conditions, given the small nature of the project.
I agree, and I second that.
Does anybody have anything to add about conditions? No? Yes?
It is a shared driveway off of Old Harbor Road or Route 28. And in order to get to the abutters property, they have to use that same driveway. So I think we should condition that driveway, for safety reasons, cannot be blocked for any reason by the contractors.
That's
Well, if I could respond to
Yeah,
that, I
please.
suppose the question is defining the word blocked. I understand what you mean, and you understand what you mean, but if J. Briggs Construction Company parks there to unload building materials for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, is it blocked? I don't know the answer to that. I just, when sometimes wording can create issues, so I understand what you're saying, and I'll certainly speak to my clients and their builder to make sure there aren't any issues, but there's some degree of flexibility, I think.
I have to say that if I can't get out of my driveway exactly when I want to get out of my driveway, I am not happy. And I think we should all be able to get in and out of our driveways exactly when we want to.
I will absolutely express that to my clients.
So I think that should be part of the condition, not to block it. Go, park somewhere else.
I think my suggestion would be if we use our standard condition that construction activity and vehicles are contained on-site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner, we cover the issue and we don't have to get into the question of what's blocking and what's not blocking under the circumstances.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I think that's a better, yeah, and so I second that,
how do you vote?
and I vote yes.
And Dave?
Yes.
Jenny?
Yes.
Well,
All vote yes.
as do I. It's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. That was easy.
As an aside, I might say that I've been living next to a construction project this winter, and there's definitely can be a difference between the ideal that we set, or even I set with the contractor, and the subsequent activity. It can vary, even with the best of intentions, but it's better to try to get everybody cooperating.
That's why our cars have horns. All right, lastly, we have 24-038, Sarah, right?
That one's just for signature. Application number 24-038, Eastward MBT LLC, care of William F. Riley Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 155 and 157 Bridge Street, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessors Map 15B, Block 1B, Lot 1B. The applicant seeks to extend special permit number 20-084 for 1 year. The current expiration date is May 6, 2024, and the proposed expiration date is May 6, 2025. The special permit allowed the applicant to demolish the 2 existing dwellings and construct 2 new dwellings. The lot contains 3.13 acres and 71,160 square feet of buildable upland in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Sections 6 and 14, and Sections 5B and 8D2B of the Protective Bylaw.
Mr. Riley, welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Bill Riley on behalf of Eastward. I sent Sarah a colored side-by-side comparison of the previously approved project and what we're thinking of today, the reason why we need this extension. Can you put that up? Of course you can. Okay, all right, so on the left is the original proposal as approved by you. And so that was the thinking at that time. 2 houses, take them down, put up 2 new houses, move the houses back a little bit, And so we got an order of conditions from Conservation Commission. We have an extensive planting plan. But then the thought process changed a little bit. And so there's a team at Eastwood, and there was a lot of debate. It was difficult to come to a consensus. Then we had some health issues on a couple of members of the team, which delayed the final design. We're very close now, and we actually anticipate filing a request to modify the special permit by the end of May. But what we're proposing now is one larger home and a smaller guest house. But the purple line is the floodplain. And so, as you can see, in the original design, the house on the left is completely within the floodplain. And on the plan on the right, we've moved the house back so it's outside the floodplain. So we think that from an environmental point of view, it's a much better project. And I just wanted to let you know what we're thinking about and really why it took so long to get to this point. I mean, there were concerns about how far back to move it, what was the impact on views and vistas for the house, not the neighbors, but the house. It was actually my suggestion to move it back behind the floodplain. And, like most projects, that go through this process, we think it comes out as a better project. There's less area of disturbance. We're going to have to modify, request a modification or amendment of the Conservation Commission order. There's going to be a very substantial replanting plan. There already was one, but now that we have moved the buildings back, there's going to be really huge improvement in terms of the health, vegetative health, and views from the water. So I think that they've done a great job. Took a long time to get here, but so we'd ask for a one-year extension. That'd be it.
Do you want to go over the reasonable grounds for that quickly? Or you want to for us to just accept it on?
Well, I mean, when you say reasonable grounds, well, I think the reasonable grounds are, it took us a long time to get to this design, but the end product is a better product environmentally and from a zoning point of view. We have less coverage, we have more plantings, and we're moving the buildings outside the floodplain. That would be the reason, what I would suggest. The design time took longer, but the end product is much better.
Okay, is anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate. Seeing none? Okay, I'm going to read the correspondence. There are two, I believe. First one is from Conservation. It's an updated letter, and it was received on April 25th, 2024. The project, this is from, let's see, what's his name? Crystal Keon. The project was issued an order of conditions on February 23, 2021. A one-year extension was granted until May 30th, 2025. The applicant has submitted a request to amend the order of conditions, and the commission will hear this request on May 8th, 2024. The project, as proposed, meets performance standards under the Wetlands Protection Act. I feel like there's one more that I skipped. Judy Giorgio from the health agent for the town, April 23rd, 2024, writes, I have no concerns about extending the special permit for this property. If there's anyone here on Microsoft Teams with a specific question or wishes to speak against this application, please make it known. Seeing none, questions from the board? Ed?
I guess the the obvious question to me is, why do you need to extend if you're going to be filing a whole new permit?
Because the permit expires on May 6th, and whatever we're presenting, we're not ready to present yet. So, but we hope to present before the end of May, to file before the end of May. So the order would have expired, so that's why we need the protection.
Thank you.
Dave Veach, questions?
So what you're proposing to present is a modification to this special permit that we're extending?
Yes, that's correct.
And if were this to expire, you wouldn't be able to modify it because it had, or not, I'm not sure.
Well, the original order, the property is pre-existing non-conforming, particularly with regard to the floodplain and our, the setbacks from the floodplain. So that's a non-conforming status that we want to preserve.
Okay,
If you look at if you could put that back up again. So we moved the buildings outside the floodplain, but we still would like to have a swimming pool so we still need that non-conforming status to protect our ability to make that
okay, yep,
provision.
okay. And then, what you're talking about, at least, is, it looks pretty clear that that it is a proposed guest house being less than, would meet the bylaw definitions of a guest house and to the main house in
Yeah,
this.
I think you can tell from the footprint that it's a
Kinda
lot
looks
less
that
than,
way,
it's a lot
but,
less
you
than
know,
50% of the size of
Yeah,
the main house. That's correct.
okay. That's all I have for right now, Randy, thanks.
Dave Nixon, questions?
Yeah, Mr. Riley, your client has been allowing asphalt to be dumped in there and all kinds of things.
I'm sorry, what?
I said your client has been allowing asphalt and other scrap from a certain project, I presume it's the town sewer, to be dumped there. Are you aware of that?
Well, what my client did was grant a request of the town to be able to use the property temporarily. Whatever has been dumped there is going to be removed.
Well, the problem with that is that I happened to be up there yesterday, and I looked at what has been graded out, not just dumped there. And the graded out includes dirty dirt, and dirty dirt is chunks of asphalt in there. And everywhere I looked, and actually I ran into Miss Fenwick there, she was there too. And we saw chunks here, chunks there, and everything we looked at had pieces in it. And so you say, okay, they're just being good eggs and allowing the town to, they're getting no remuneration for this, they're just letting it to be dumped? I just don't think, Mr. Riley, this is being, shall we say, a good caretaker of that property. I just don't see it.
David Clark can help out.
I understand
If you could
your
state your name,
concerns.
Mr. Clark,
Oh, sorry,
please, for the
David
record.
Clark Engineering.
Yep.
I understand your concerns, and it's one of my concerns too, because Jay has been very vigilant about holding the letter of the law about filling in the floodplain. So we have pre-disturbance topographic information on the property, and all the material that's been placed on the property by the town's contractor will be removed, and we have information that can document that. So the regrading of the property or the moving of material on the property has the appearance that there's been fill placed in the floodplain, and that will all be removed before the house project is finished. And actually, it'll probably all be removed before the house project gets underway.
Right, I think I appreciate the concerns. I personally haven't been on the lot lately, so I didn't drive by and I did notice the contractor's vehicles there. But we can assure both Jay and you that we're going to go back to the original contours because that was the basis for the house design as well. And I think so, I mean, they didn't ask us for permission to do that, they just did it. And so we're gonna make sure that the matter's cleaned up and brought back to the original contours of the property.
Maybe one of you two gentlemen know the answer to this question. To get all that stuff over there, they've been using essentially 10-wheel dump trucks. What's the weight rating for our bridge on Bridge Street?
I don't know.
Would you guess it's 30,000 pounds, 25,000 pounds? I mean, it's being a drawbridge, it's not like, you know, a bridge that's one span.
Well, that's true, but you have to remember the Dougie's Bridge, as it was named, there was a long and contentious discussion amongst the townsfolk, including the recently deceased Norman Bacon, that they wanted to have a wooden bridge. The state didn't want a wooden bridge, they wanted concrete and metal. So the compromise is that the base of the bridge is concrete and metal, and only the surface is wood. So I don't know what the weight is, but I'm sure it's, not being compromised by these vehicles going over it. Otherwise, there'd be a sign in front that said, weight limit.
There's no sign anywhere. I mean, this,
Well, I know, but that's the point, Dave. If there was gonna be a weight limit, the state and the town would have placed a weight limit on it before it opened. And so, because there is no sign there, there's no,
max, huh?
well,
Well, there is.
I mean,
there's a.
that's my problem, that your client is allowing, and I'll just tell you, because I have clients that have dump trucks like that, these things, the GVW of these things is 73,000 pounds, 73,000. Your automobile, Mr. Riley, doesn't even weigh 3,000 pounds. No, it doesn't.
I know,
And
but
so
my
maybe-
automobile is particularly cute, so it's okay for it to be.
All right, but, and this
I know, but
bridge,
David-
being a drawbridge,
I know,
as
but
we
David-
know, doesn't work all the time.
Yeah, David, what do you want? Just tell me what you want.
I don't want to see another 10-wheel dump truck go over that bridge until somebody tells me it's okay. I don't
That's
want to
fine.
see it.
Impose that as a condition, we're happy to get the information for you.
Well, anyway, it's
I
just
mean, we were just trying to,
be good
help out the
guys.
town.
I know. You're all a bunch of princes, and you're going to go directly to heaven, and that's great, and I'm happy
well,
for you.
I think that,
Really am.
the only way I'm getting to heaven is because I'm a volunteer in a handicap ski program, so people say, why do you do that? I say, how else is a lawyer going to get to heaven?
All right, so,
But-
any other questions from the board? Ginny?
Yeah.
Unless we'll go back to you, if you think of any more.
Okay, Mr. Riley, I wanted to ask you to elaborate a little bit more on why 3 years is not enough time. This first hearing to ZBA was in January of 2021, voted 4-1 to get and you received exactly what your client wanted at that time for the two homes. And then in March of 2023, you came back and asked for an extension, and I watched that hearing, and you said, we're thinking about a change of design. Why does it take a year to come up with this? It seems like 3 years is, we're talking about the owner of this property is an experienced builder, knowledgeable, access. It seems like a lot of time, 3 years, for that spot, which is a very prominent spot, to be in limbo.
Well, without getting into the health issues, the principal in the company had a very serious health issue, and it continues to affect his health. and that limits his involvement to some degree. And so that has greatly slowed down our project. And that's basically why it's taken this long to get here.
So a follow-up question to that, and I certainly empathize and can understand that that can be disruptive, but this isn't an individual, this is a company. You mentioned at the beginning of this hearing that there are like a team of people that work on these projects?
Right, but all right, so Eastwood Companies is basically Bill Marsh. Everybody else in the company, is working for him, right? The design team consists of an architect, Karen Kempton, who didn't actually finish her design until about, 3 weeks ago. Then they have to turn that footprint over to David. So it's not a team of people in Eastwood Home, it's a team of people who are working with Eastwood Homes. But all the design decisions are driven by Bill Marsh. And so, his compromised health has slowed the process down a great deal. And so we thought 1 year would be enough. It was only when I brought to their attention that we were running out of time that they asked me to come in and get this extension. As I said, we're finally coalesced around, a single design. I'm confident it'll be presented, hopefully by the end of May, but perhaps early June, for filing. And I think the project represents a very significant improvement on the environmental side. And so that's why we think the relief should be granted, because it's going to be a fabulous project. I understand, it's been a long time. It hasn't looked particularly attractive. I understand that also. But, the way to get the thing moving is to grant the extension so we can get the new design filed and get to work.
So going back to Mr. Acton's question, why couldn't you just, you have to do that anyway, put a new plan together and re-present it, right? We have to look at more than this to approve that.
Right.
So why wouldn't you, I understand there's, you mentioned that there's some, they'd have to pull it back even more, but we're talking 3 acres of property here with like 70,000 square feet of, you could still build a single-family home with a pool on the property and take as much time as you need to come back with a new plan.
Yeah, we think that requesting another 1-year extension is very fair. We think the project has improved tremendously, and we think that the 1-year relief should be granted. We think that if we lose the non-conforming status of the property, it represents a significant decrease in the value of the property and the value of the project moving forward.
So that's really what the issue is. That is why you need to extend for a year, not to come up with a new plan that's a better plan.
No.
Is that right?
The plan has been in the process for months. This plan has been in the process for months. It's a very complex plan. I defer to David Clark to talk about the meetings that he's been involved with as they work through the grading issues on the property and the wetland issues on the property. And so, as I indicated, we've been working diligently, hampered to some degree by the health issues. And so, we're very close to being able to present a new plan. But it's still not, Sarah would still not accept it today. So we have a little bit more information so that when we file it, it'll be complete and be accepted.
We've been working on this new plan for a couple of years now, and it all stemmed from Mr. Marsh wanting to change directions from having two substantial single-family homes to a more traditional, large single-family home and a traditional guest house. So you see, we don't have two single-family dwellings, we have a house and a guest house. Part of the problem with the design is that we are so close to the floodplain, and some of the past recent iterations of the floor plan still put us in the floodplain, which we've been trying to avoid for building code issues, obviously. Karen's had her plan done fundamentally for 6 months. The last 6 months, we've been working on the landscape. And so Andrew Garrelay finished the conceptual landscape plan a few weeks ago, gave us that information, we finalized the site plan. Our site plan's all ready to file for a new special permit or a modified special permit. We just filed with Conservation yesterday to get that process started to amend the order of conditions. So we're moving forward quickly now. And it was all basically driven by Mr. Marsh's idea that turning this into two separate dwellings into a more of a single-family compound type of, with a small guest house. Which, and I don't know if Bill mentioned, this results in several thousand more square feet of hardscape and structure being moved out of Conservation's jurisdiction. So it's a huge improvement over what was permitted.
And if I could, he mentioned 1 year. When I actually filed the request, it was for 6 months because we don't need a year. I was advised by Madam Chair that I should ask for a year, I think just for consistency.
I never talked to you about this. Did you mean me?
Yeah, you and I had a conversation right after I filed it. You had looked at it with Sarah, and you called and talked to me about it, and you said, Bill, you've asked for 6 months. I think you should ask for a year.
I already said that we never had the conversation, so I'm not gonna say it again.
Okay. All right. In any event, we don't need a year. So if you want to give us 6 months, that's fine. I think it's a huge improvement.
So that I'm clear, I agree. I think it's a better looking plan. I think you said, Mr. Riley, that the purple line represents the floodplain.
Yes.
So that's the new plan, and the previous picture is the prior plan, and it's pulled back. But you shouldn't build in a floodplain anyway. So, I feel like you're holding us a little bit hostage to this better plan. Would you not build this plan if you don't get the extension? Would you go back to the two, I'm just trying to understand,
Well,
what's...
that's a business decision by Eastwood Companies in that they would have to.
I'm just
We don't
trying
want to go back to the original
Yeah.
plan. So-
Right.
So I guess I'm having difficulty understanding
My question?
what the concern is. We'll be filing the plan by the end of May or by the middle of June. So if you want to give us a 60-day extension so we can file it, that's fine.
I
And we
think
don't need a
We're
year.
gonna go back to questions and answers,
Okay.
okay? If you have another question, please ask it.
Well, maybe I wasn't clear. I think my question essentially is, why do we need to extend this permit since it's changing completely? And why can't we just go to a new application? And then you can do that that's,
Well, we think this is a better plan. If we're required to start over again and lose the non-conforming status, it represents a significant decrease in the value of the property. And so we prefer to just move forward with what we have and what we've been working on for the last year and a half.
okay, so specifically this nonconformity that you would lose has to do with the floodplain? Is that?
Yes,
Okay. So it would have to go on the other side of the purple line?
yes.
All right, thank you.
And questions? Steve, did you already ask a question?
No, I didn't, but the ones I would have asked have already been asked.
All right, Paul, questions?
I actually wasn't going to go out to the property because I was anticipating that this was an extension question. I was familiar with the property, but I did go out. And if you go back to what the property looked like before this process started, it's kind of unusual. I went out there to look at the property before the process started back 3 years ago, and there were deer on that property. I was then somewhat surprised by the amount of clearing that was done. I think it took all of us by shock that it was approved. And I think it was approved because it was invasive species.
Right.
And that was the reason why it was basically cleared. Then I went out and looked at it last week, and of course, there's all kinds of stuff that has been dumped on the property. Now, I appreciate the fact that Bill Marsh and others are receptive to trying to help the town in a situation where it needs some help in terms of storing things. But it is not a good situation, the way it was done. And as I say, I don't know whether that was with permission or whether it was not with permission. But the thing that bothers me more that I'm trying to get resolved is you're really making an application for a new project. And when you ask for an extension of the existing approvals are not really relevant at all. It's a new project that you're starting. Now, I understand that what you're saying is if you don't get an extension, then you may lose the non-conforming nature. And I guess the question there is, can you explain a little bit more how that impacts your client and the project itself? I understand part of it is the floodplain.
Well, I think I suppose I would have to say it begins with, the vision of the principal of the company and, what's the best, most attractive use of the property. Now, when you said you went out there at the beginning, was that before the houses were removed that were there?
That was at the time that you filed an initial application for a special permit.
Right, and so.
That's 4 years ago, I guess.
Right. Can you move the plan a little bit to the side so we can see a little bit more of the left-hand plan? Down a little bit, so I can see okay. So when we bought the property, can you move the cursor?
I have the original plan, Bill.
Do we have the, oh yeah, here it is. Was this the existing conditions?
That's the original approval from 2021.
Okay, so the original house, the house that was there that we took down, was located over here. And the guest house, there was a guest house that was located over here, both inside the floodplain, inside the 50. And so the idea was, well, we'll move things back because that's an improvement. And then there was a very significant plant mitigation plan, all right? So one impact on, refusing the extension is that, we're no longer in your jurisdiction. The plant mitigation, because we're now moving outside of the floodplain, we're moving away from the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. There's no longer the authority of the Conservation Commission to require the kinds of mitigation we're offering. So we think that working with you working with the Conservation Commission, it's a better project. Placing a swimming pool in the floodplain is really not an issue because, the things we don't want in the floodplain are structures, because structures can be damaged in a flood. They can create debris that affects other properties. There are, things that we put in houses that we don't want floating around in the water in the event of a storm. You put a swimming pool in the floodplain, and it's just a hole in the ground with water in it. And so we don't think that having a swimming pool there represents any sort of a threat to the environment. So the project, as it has developed slowly, is much better than the original project. And so, if the application is denied, then we go back to the design drawing board. The lot continues to look the way it looks, while a new design is put together. I don't see that as being beneficial, to the town. Right now, we're ready to get to work, hopefully, this coming fall. All the material that has been put on the property will be removed and cleaned up under the supervision of Jay and the Conservation Commission. We start doing the mitigation planting this fall. I mean, there are a lot of advantages to this project if it's allowed to proceed. I mean, if you look just at the comparison of lot coverage, there's much less lot coverage, not just in the, in the floodplain or in the area subject to the conservation jurisdiction, but just back towards the road. So it's, it makes, for a much more attractive design. And to the extent we have to move everything back, then we have things closer to the road, more massive structures closer to the road. The further away it is from the road, I think, reduces the impact, scale, siting, and mass on the property. So we really believe that the work we're proposing to do constitutes a substantial benefit, some of which would be lost along with our ability to put the pool in the floodplain, which is really all we're trying to do.
Paul, do you feel like your question was answered?
I think that answers my question. Yes, thank you.
Do you have any more questions, Paul?
No.
Dave Nixon, do you have another question? No. No, you don't? All right, so if I had a conversation with you, which I didn't, I would have said, how much time do you need to get moving? And so it's funny that you mentioned something like 6 months, because I actually was talking to staff about it today, and we tried to figure out what could we do to allow you to keep your non-conforming, aspect, but really send you a message that, this is it.
Right.
And we came up with 5 months.
Perfect,
You think?
perfect.
But that means when you come back to this is just the world
Yeah, no, I
according to
understand.
Randy. We have other people here.
Yeah, no,
you know, this is-
we expect to be well underway.
But the thing is, when you come back with another plan, if anyone went along with what I said, you'd have to come back with a good one, because you wouldn't have time to come back again.
I tell you.
Do you know what I mean?
This is a great plan.
You know what I mean, though?
I do know.
Because you wouldn't have any time to spare, and again, if anyone went along with what I'm saying, there'd be no further continuances either. I know judges say that, so I figured I'd say it.
No, but believe me, this design has been worked on for months.
So I'm throwing that as a question, and I think
No.
you've answered it,
Yeah.
that would be something that might appeal to you. 5 months, no further continuances.
Right.
That was my question. You answered it. So now, Paul?
Well, I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
And how do you vote?
And votes yes.
Dave Nixon?
Yes?
And Ginny?
Yes.
And Paul?
Yes.
As do I. Okay, deliberations. David Nixon.
Okay, well, I hear what you're saying, Mr. Riley, but I truly believe that the process that you've gone through or your client's gone through, what we listened to now 3.5 years ago has all changed, as you said. No more two houses, we've gone to this, that, and the other thing. And it needs to start from scratch. Now, you said, okay, there could be some monetary problems. Well, that's not our issue. We don't ask you, how much money is this client going to make on this or not going to make on it? It's none of our business. So, I just can't factor that business in. Secondly, as I mentioned, I don't think that your client has been a good caretaker of this property. And you say, well, he doesn't feel so good, but everything depends on his whim of the day. Well, you say this plan is gonna be great and everybody's gonna love it. He could tell you 2 weeks from now, I hate it, it stinks. We need something, not a flimsy piece of paper. We need the plans, we need everything. And the only way I'm gonna get it and be able to make a decision is for us to deny your request and go back to the beginning. And you talk about, well, then the floodplain and all this. It wasn't us that made you rip down those 2 homes. It wasn't us, was it? No, it was done for what reason? I'll tell you what reason. You get a lower property tax, substantially lower when you don't have a structure on it. I mean, who's kidding who? This was an economic thing.
David,
So I am not done.
Okay.
So I really think the best decision for the town is to have this go back to the beginning. And let's see what happens. This is not something that should be modified in any way, shape, or form.
Can I make one?
No, the hearing is closed.
No, I understand that, but I want to reiterate one comment, which is that you won't have any jurisdiction over what happens.
Okay.
And it's a better project when you have jurisdiction.
I think I've had my say.
Yes, you have. Thank you. If you need another one, we'll go back. All right. Ginny, deliberations.
Well, I said a lot of my kind of deliberations and my questions. I think that it has been, it's been a lot of time. It's been a vacant lot. It's, as I mentioned, a very important part of town. This has been neighbors, visitors to Chatham that have seen this. I recall, Mr. Riley, you mentioned in your narrative in 2021, the original proposal, that, the houses aren't going to be seen from the street. They're going to be covered with, there's going to be trees. They'll be way back there. And then all the houses were gone. All the trees were gone. So, I am personally hesitant to approve a plan or related to the offer of the extension is predicated on this plan that we're just seeing from the screen. We don't even have a copy of it here. So we have to rely on what, like Mr. Nixon is saying, you and your client are saying you're gonna do. Having said that, I do think that if we are balancing the interest of time and trying to wrap this up, it's really an eyesore. And 3 years has been a long time. That what's being proposed would make the timeline go faster. That's one thing that I'm thinking about.
Steve, deliberations? If you were voting?
If I were voting. Well, I think the fact that this has been out there for 3 years is time enough. I understand there's extenuating circumstances, but nothing has been done except tear down those 2 houses that were there and blighted the area as far as I'm concerned. And I also think that this is a substantial enough change. We're going from 2 houses to 1. The hardscape is changing, the landscaping is changing. I think this is substantial enough change that it warrants a new application and to start from fresh.
Okay. Paul, deliberations?
Well, I had come in with the concept that really this amounted to a new application. And I realize that there's a lot of stuff that's gone under the bridge in effect in trying to get this resolved. I take as important the fact that there has been a health problem with respect to the principal who was involved here. I realize it's a company, but it's also a company that's run by him. And he has been helpful with the town in the past, and I take that into consideration. I think also it is of significance that we would retain some jurisdiction with respect to this property if we do not kill this at this point and require a new application. Because I think we could end up with a project that is better because we do have jurisdiction. So I'm inclined to go the way of extending the permit, but to limit it to a 5-month period has been suggested by the chair, and go on that basis. But I agree that the whole project has been somewhat of a disaster from the beginning. Simply the way it looks and the way it affected the property itself. And I'm amazed that with good intentions or however, that things could be dumped on the property and conservation does nothing about it. Nobody seems to do anything about it because it looked like a mess and it shouldn't. Well, that's where I'm at.
Deliberations, Dave Veach, I think?
Well, I'm sensitive to the I guess I'd say concept that frequently there's in the evolution of a project, a construction project, there can be some real improvements that take place, and I feel like I'm seeing that, at least in terms of the plan that they've showed us and what Bill is indicating. I think there's a strong likelihood that if they're able to proceed with that plan and with ours and Conscom's input, that I think it's probably going to be a better plan than the extension I mean, what they're asking for, I mean, I don't know, they could maybe walk into and present for the building permit for the plan that they have tomorrow and go ahead and build it. So if we, there's possibility, if we're going to force their hand on that, that's what they'll do. And I don't see where they are in the process and the way that it's been presented. I don't want to do that. I think that they're indicating, yes, there's certainly been problems in the look of it and how it's all gone along. But as far as the timing goes, I just don't know that, I don't really think a lot has changed in 3 years in my mind in terms of generally we fairly routinely grant extensions. And, frequently with the thought, we approve something for 2 years or whatever, and to add another year is in the grand scheme of things, is something that is worth doing. And it shouldn't, I don't feel differently about it than I did a year ago or whatever. So I really think that rather than, I don't believe that it's going to be in the town's best interest necessarily to box them into having to conform to everything on the lot, and we lose any input, Conscom loses input, they can do whatever they want. I imagine they'll find a way. It might cost them some more, they may not be able to make as much money as they'd like, but they'll find a way to do it. I'm not convinced that that's going to give us a better result than if we go along and give them an extension and give them the time to further develop what they're telling us they're going to do. That's my take on it. I don't think, or say to them, all right, you got a couple weeks left on this approved plan. Do what you will. I don't think that's a safe, a good way to do it either. So I'm in favor of an extension, so.
Okay, are you in favor of a 5-month extension?
It doesn't honestly, I would be fine with the year. I'll go along with anything less than that, but I know it's, so yes, it puts their feet to the fire more, and maybe that's a good idea. I'm not sure that it, unforeseen things all happen all the time. So I'm okay with a year, but I'll go with the 5 months if that's where people go. Yeah.
Ed, deliberations, and if you were voting?
Yeah, I'm not voting today, but I feel like the plan that was approved was an improvement over what was there. I feel like the latest plan could be improvement, one house instead of 2 houses. It takes everything, further away from the aura. I don't feel like Eastwood has been good stewards of the property, but that may go under the heading of no good deed goes unpunished. Trying to help out the town, and then you have lose control of what's actually happening on the site. I could see that really needs to be policed when you say okay to something like that. But I'm okay with an extension. I'd like to see the project move forward. I think people in that area would like to see the project move forward. So I would be okay with a 6-month extension to get this project going.
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Yeah, I didn't talk yet, but if you want to talk before me, you might as well.
only that to the extent that the current condition of the property is offensive, which it is, denying the application today just means it's going to continue to look like that, because now we have to do a new design. The way to get the property looking the way it should look is to grant our request so we can begin. As David said, his site plan is ready to go. Karen's plans are almost ready to go. Andrew's plans are ready to go. We'll be filed hopefully before the end of May. Work will start in September.
So, can I talk now? All right, so I just want to make a couple of comments about, I listened to all the prior hearings. I wasn't on the board in 2021 when they granted this. Buck Upson voted no, you probably remember that. And some of the members that voted yes were happy about all the trees. And so now we have a different scenario there, and that's a little troubling to me, because part of the reason they voted yes, I think it might even have been Paul, is because he thought that the whole setting was nice. I'm not done talking yet. And so then, now we have a different scenario, and then you came before the board for an extension, for a more time. And then at that hearing, you said, we have new plans, we're gonna get them to you by the summer, and we hope to start by fall of 2023. And it was really the same rendition as you said today. I think there's no daylight in your last argument and today, honestly. I don't know if the gentleman got sicker or not, but I'm just saying.
He had a stroke.
No, that's terrible. I'm not trying to deny it, so you don't have to argue with me.
Okay.
So don't, okay? Probably less is more from you right now, I would say. So, I'd like to go through the evolution of everything, just for the record.
Sure.
And now I'm very troubled about the fact that if we deny this, it's gonna sit there and it's gonna look lousy for God knows how long, until he decides, or until somebody in the company decides to do something about it. And then that is not a good, it's not a good look, it's not a good result. So I'm gonna stick with my recommendation for 5 months, because that causes you to have to go ahead and file all these plans that are ready to go. And if you really want to keep your non-conforming status, you'll do that, and you'll have shovels in the ground within 5 months. You'll have a permit, I guess. So I'm going to stick with that, and I think we all gave it a lot of thought, we've had a lot of time. Did you want to say something?
I was just gonna say they'll have to physically commence work, not just have the building permit in hand. in
Within
order
5 months? of-
Well, prior to the expiration of the special permit.
Yeah, so you have, the clock's not going to start ticking until May 6th, whatever it is. So it's not today that the clock starts ticking, I think. It ticks then. And so you'll have until, I think, October, if we do 6 months from then. I'm not 100% sure, but, and if you're willing to accept that, I'll ask Paul for a motion.
No,
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, Sarah, when Dave was saying that East would come in tomorrow and get a permit for what we approved 3.5 years ago, that's not correct, is it?
We're running 3 to 4 weeks for the issuance of a building
So
permit.
time
They
would have expired.
They would,
No.
So that's
we wouldn't-
not a concern.
We wouldn't be coming in. We're not going to go back to the original plan.
But we just flushed out the fact that that wouldn't help you anyway.
That I wanted to straighten out, that could not happen.
Yeah, it wouldn't help. Okay, so even if it came in, the motion
Yeah,
denied.
we don't have any plans for those buildings.
Okay,
so.
okay. So, Paul,
Well, I'll move to grant the application as submitted with the exception that rather than an extension for 1 year, it would be for 5 months. And that the original conditions imposed on permit 20-084 would be continued, which is that all construction activity and vehicles would be contained on site. That between June 30th and Labor Day, no work would be permitted on weekends. No construction activity between 8 a.m. all construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only.
Dave Veach seconds,
and how do you vote?
and I vote yes.
And Dave Nixon?
Absolutely not.
Okay, Ginny?
I vote no.
Okay, Paul?
I'll vote yes.
And I vote yes, too. So that's denied, and thank you very much. That concludes our applications for today. I just need a motion to adjourn after we decide what time it is. It looks like it's... Motion and then a vote. Okay, motion to adjourn,
I so move.
and
I'll
Paul?
second the motion to adjourn.
And how do you vote?
I'll vote yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Dave?
I don't want to leave. We're having so much fun. Okay.
All right, Ed?
Yes.
And Dave?
Veach votes yes.
And I do too, and now we'll say, what time is it, Sarah?
5:23 PM.
Not
Hey,
bad.
Good night, Chatham.